Hello and welcome. I'm glad you're here. Tonight we begin a journey together into a book that quietly challenges the way most of us live our lives. Its message is simple, yet it has the power to rearrange the way you think about time, energy, and meaning. The book is Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and at its heart is one burning question. How do you cut through the noise of too much and focus only on what truly matters? If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to BookSnap, and comment below the title of the book you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Now, let's step into the world McKeown paints for us, one we all know too well. Picture yourself standing in the middle of a busy street, surrounded by neon signs flashing, cars honking, and people rushing in every direction. Everyone wants your attention, pulling you left and right, offering opportunities, responsibilities, and demands. Some voices sound urgent, others persuasive, some even loving. But they all say the same thing. Come this way, do this now. Don't miss out. It feels like you're drowning in noise, and every instinct tells you to try to please them all, to keep up, to not fall behind. But here's the truth. In trying to do everything, you begin to lose yourself. McKeown calls this the disease of non-essentialism. It's the silent epidemic of our time, one that convinces us that more is always better. More tasks on the calendar, more yeses to requests, more achievements to stack like trophies. But what happens when the pursuit of more leaves us exhausted, spread thin, and strangely unfulfilled? The tragedy is not that we're not working hard enough. It's that we're working hard at the wrong things. Think back for a moment to a time in your life when you felt overcommitted. Maybe it was saying yes to a project at work you didn't truly believe in, or agreeing to social plans when your body longed for rest, or chasing after one more opportunity because you feared missing out. In those moments, didn't you feel a strange hollowness, like you were living someone else's story instead of your own? That's the cost of non-essentialism. We surrender our choices, we trade our focus for fragments, and we forget that our energy is finite. Greg McKeown's insight lands with a quiet force. When everything is important, nothing is. Imagine a closet so cluttered with clothes you can't even see what's inside. Most of us live our lives this way, stuffed with obligations, tangled with distractions, unable to find the few pieces that actually fit us and make us feel alive. Essentialism is about emptying that closet, holding up each commitment to the light, and asking with courage, does this matter, or is it just noise? The metaphor he uses is powerful. Think of your energy as a circle. The non-essentialist spreads their effort in 100 tiny directions, a spiky sunburst of activity that makes little progress anywhere. The essentialist, on the other hand, channels that same energy in one bold arrow, cutting forward with purpose. It's not about doing less just to relax. It's about doing less but better. It's the disciplined pursuit of what's essential, and the brave rejection of everything else. But here's the tension. We are taught from childhood to believe that saying yes is the way forward. Yes means opportunity. Yes means progress. Yes means being liked. To say no feels risky, selfish, even rude. Yet McKeown reminds us that every yes is, by definition, a no to something else. When we say yes to late-night emails, we say no to rest. When we say yes to every social obligation, we say no to deep focus. And when we say yes to the trivial many, we say no to the vital few. This is the starting point of essentialism. Realizing that life is a finite resource. Time cannot be stretched, energy cannot be endlessly replenished, and attention cannot be divided without cost. The illusion of more is seductive, but it always comes with a hidden price. And the essentialist refuses to pay that price. They choose instead to protect their most precious assets, their time, their clarity, their ability to give their best to the few things that truly deserve it. As the chapter of noise closes, McKeown leaves us with a haunting image. A person pulled in every direction, exhausted, scattered, and wondering why they never seem to arrive. The essentialist, by contrast, is walking calmly, slowly even, but with certainty, because they know where they are headed and why. So as we begin this journey, the question becomes yours. What noise in your life has drowned out the essential? Where have you scattered yourself so thin that you can barely recognize what you once valued? In the chapters ahead, we'll walk step by step through the shift, from chaos to clarity, from saying yes to everything to saying yes only to what matters most. The noise is loud now, but silence is coming, and in that silence, we will begin to hear what is essential. There's a peculiar kind of power in a small two-letter word, no. Yet for most of us, it's the hardest word to say. We live in a world that rewards compliance, a culture that praises busyness, a society where being agreeable is often confused with being valuable. From our earliest days, we're conditioned to nod along, to raise our hands, to say yes. Yes to more work, yes to more commitments, yes to more distractions. And in those yeses, something essential slips away. Greg McKeown describes it like this: every time you say yes to something unimportant, you are in fact saying no to something vital. But here's the twist. Most of the time, we don't even realize the theft taking place. The energy you gave to a trivial meeting is energy you no longer have for your child when you get home. The hours you spent trying to please someone with a half-hearted task are hours stolen from your deepest passion. The yes you spoke without thinking becomes a chain that ties you to a life not of your choosing. Have you ever noticed how quickly we regret certain yeses? That sinking feeling in your stomach the moment you hang up the phone after committing to something you didn't want to do. The tightness in your chest when you look at your calendar and realize the week has been filled by everyone else's priorities but your own. It's almost as if your soul whispers, "Why didn't you just say no?" The essentialist learns to honor that whisper. Saying no is not about arrogance, nor about shutting doors out of fear. It is about making space. Space for what matters, space for rest, space for depth. It is about reclaiming the right to choose. McKeown shares a truth most of us resist. When you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. There is always a boss, a colleague, a friend, a stranger even, ready to fill your time with their agendas. But no one else will fight for your priorities with the same urgency as you must. Think of it this way. Your life is like a field. Every yes is a seed planted. Some seeds grow into trees that bear fruit for decades. Others sprout weeds that choke out the soil. If you plant indiscriminately, soon your field is overrun and the harvest is pitiful. But if you plant only the seeds that matter and you protect the soil with care, the result is abundance. Saying no is simply choosing not to plant weeds. The difficulty, of course, lies in the fear. We worry that no will disappoint, that no will shut down opportunities, that no will make us seem difficult, or ungrateful, or lazy. And yet, McKeown reminds us, history's greatest achievements were born not from endless yeses, but from carefully guarded focus. Think of the scientist who says no to countless distractions in order to spend years on a single experiment. Think of the writer who says no to social gatherings, dedicating dawn after dawn to crafting words that will outlive them. Their greatness comes not from saying yes to everything, but from saying yes to one thing, again and again. There's a quiet elegance in watching someone who has mastered the art of no. They decline with grace. They resist without hostility. Their boundaries are not walls but gates, open when it matters, closed when it doesn't. And in that discipline, they carry an aura of clarity, of peace, of direction. Contrast that with the person who says yes to everything. You can see it in their tired eyes, in their rushed words, in their scattered energy. They are everywhere, and yet somehow, nowhere at all. McKeown offers us permission to step away from that life, to remember that no is a complete sentence, and that it is often the most loving word we can speak, loving toward ourselves, and even loving toward others, because it ensures that when we do say yes, it is a yes of full presence, not a yes of reluctant obligation. The journey of essentialism demands that we begin here, with courage. Courage to endure the discomfort of letting others down. Courage to trust that in narrowing our commitments, we widen our impact. Courage to believe that our value is not measured by how many tasks we juggle, but by how meaningfully we pursue the few that matter. So ask yourself, where have you been saying yes when your soul longed to say no? What would happen if, just once this week, you declined with honesty and protected your time for what truly matters? The truth is, no is not the end of something. No is the beginning. It is the opening of space, the clearing of clutter, the silence in which the essential can finally be heard. There is a subtle but profound difference between the pursuit of less and the pursuit of better. At first glance, they may appear the same: cutting back, eliminating, stripping away. But Greg McKeown draws a bright line here. Essentialism is not about scarcity, nor about minimalism for its own sake. It is about the disciplined pursuit of less but better. Imagine holding a diamond in your hand. It is small, compact, almost ordinary in size compared to a pile of pebbles beside it. Yet in the light, it burns with brilliance. Its value is not in its size, but in its clarity. This is the heart of essentialism. Our lives too often look like that pile of pebbles, scattered, weighty, unimpressive. But when we commit to the vital few, the diamonds, our days begin to glow with meaning. The essentialist does not ask, "How can I do it all?" That question is the trap of non-essentialism. Instead, they ask, "What is the one thing I can do that will matter most?" It's the same question an artist might ask when facing a blank canvas. Do they splash every color at once, creating noise? Or do they choose carefully, stroke by stroke, building something that lasts? The art of life is no different. But here's the paradox. Choosing less often feels harder than choosing more. To say yes to everything is to escape the pain of decision, at least for a moment. To say yes to fewer things is to accept the weight of discernment. You must hold each opportunity in your hands and turn it like a jeweler inspects a stone, asking, "Does this shine? Does this belong?" And in doing so, you admit a difficult truth. Most things are not worth your time. McKeown offers a piercing metaphor. Imagine you're editing a film. Hours of footage lie before you, every scene precious in its own way. But unless you cut, unless you slice away the unnecessary frames, the story will be buried under clutter. Essentialism is editing your life like a master filmmaker. You keep the scenes that carry the story, and you leave the rest on the cutting room floor. Think about your own life as a film. Which scenes are central to your story? Which are filler? Which drain the momentum and weigh the narrative down? The essentialist's role is to choose, to let go of the filler so the true arc of your life can unfold. This shift, from more to better, requires not just strategy, but a transformation of mindset. For years we've been taught that success equals more achievements, more possessions, more recognition. But if that were true, why do so many who have everything still feel hollow? Why do lives packed with activities still feel empty? The answer is simple. More is not better. Only better is better. McKeown illustrates this with the story of companies that fall into the trap of expansion. They diversify endlessly, chasing every opportunity, until their energy is diluted and their brand loses focus. Compare that with companies that resist the temptation, doubling down only on what they do best. Those are the ones that endure. The same principle applies to us. Our personal lives, our careers, our relationships, they thrive not when we scatter, but when we focus. Think about the people you admire most. Is it their ability to juggle endless commitments that makes them extraordinary? Or is it their clarity, their deep excellence in one arena, their unshakable commitment to a purpose that outshines the trivial? Greatness is not found in doing more things. Greatness is found in doing the right things, deeply and well. But here lies the challenge. It requires trust. Trust that by choosing less, you will not fall behind. Trust that by saying no to distractions, you will not miss the thing that defines you. Trust that by narrowing your focus, you will expand your impact. Less but better is an act of faith, but it is also an act of courage. It is standing in a world screaming for more and daring to whisper, "I choose better." It is looking at your crowded life, the obligations, the tasks, the noise, and choosing, with trembling hands if necessary, to lay them down until only the essential remains. So let me ask you, what is the diamond in your life right now? If you had to choose one pursuit, one relationship, one contribution that mattered more than all the rest, could you name it? And if you could, would you have the courage to protect it from the clutter that threatens to bury it? Essentialism is not about deprivation. It is about abundance. The abundance that comes when your energy is no longer wasted, when your heart is no longer divided, when your time is invested in the things that truly shine. Less but better. Fewer but deeper. Smaller but clearer. That is where meaning lives. Sometimes the most radical act in our busy, overstimulated world is to stop, to pause, to breathe, to give ourselves the rare permission to do nothing at all. It sounds simple, even indulgent, but Greg McKeown argues that this pause, this sacred space for reflection, is the hinge upon which the door to essentialism swings open. Without it, clarity never arrives. Think about the way most of us move through life. We wake up to the buzz of an alarm, already behind schedule. Our phones flash with notifications before our eyes are fully open. We rush from one meeting to another, one errand to the next, filling the cracks with emails, messages, and mindless scrolling. We rarely stop, because stopping feels like falling behind. And so we move faster, but strangely, with less direction. We become like a ship at sea with the engine roaring but no compass, burning fuel without ever knowing where we're headed. McKeown calls us back to an older rhythm, one nearly forgotten, the rhythm of stillness. In that pause, whether it is a quiet morning walk, a journal entry written in solitude, or even a few deep breaths taken between tasks, the fog begins to lift. What once seemed urgent reveals itself as trivial. What once clamored for your attention fades into background noise. And slowly, what truly matters begins to shine through. Think of it like letting muddy water settle. Swirl it endlessly, and it stays cloudy. Leave it untouched, and the dirt drifts downward, revealing the clear water beneath. Our minds are no different. If we never pause, if we never allow the swirling demands to settle, we will never see the clarity hiding underneath. The Essentialist makes this pause a discipline. It's not accidental, not left for the rare moment when life slows down, because life rarely does. They carve it out deliberately. They protect it fiercely. They understand that in the stillness, they can finally hear the faint voice of the essential whispering. One of McKeown's most profound insights is that clarity is not found in motion. We don't stumble into it by accident while rushing. Clarity comes from deliberate reflection. Leaders who make the greatest decisions are those who step back, who think deeply before acting, who resist the pressure to always be on. In their pause, they see patterns others miss. In their pause, they see the path forward. But this pause is not just for leaders in boardrooms. It is for all of us. A parent choosing how to spend precious time with their children. an artist deciding which project deserves their full heart, a worker wondering if the next promotion is worth the sacrifice. Without reflection, we say yes blindly. With reflection, we begin to choose with intention. And here's the paradox. The pause doesn't waste time. It saves it. How many hours, days, even years have we wasted chasing things that never mattered? How many times have we rushed into commitments only to regret them later? A moment of reflection, a pause to ask, is this essential? Can save us from years of wandering down the wrong path. McKeown tells us to schedule this space like any other priority. Block it on the calendar. Guard it. Protect it as if it were a meeting with your future self. Because in a way, that's exactly what it is. Every time you pause, you are meeting the wiser version of you, the one who is not caught in the noise of now, but who sees with the long view of what truly matters. It may feel uncomfortable at first. Silence always does. Our minds itch for distraction, for stimulation, for noise. But stay in it. Let the discomfort pass. Slowly, you'll notice something remarkable. In the quiet, creativity returns. In the quiet, courage rises. In the quiet, you begin to remember who you are and what you value. So let me ask you, when was the last time you paused? Not because your phone battery died, not because you were forced to wait in line, but because you chose to step aside from the current of life and sit in stillness. If it's been a while, perhaps this is your invitation, because essentialism is not about moving faster. It's about moving with purpose. And that purpose can only be found when we pause long enough to listen. Every decision we make carries an invisible cost. Every yes to one thing is a silent no to another. Greg McKeown calls this reality the inevitability of trade-offs, and it is perhaps the most uncomfortable truth of essentialism. We want to believe we can have it all, that we can keep every plate spinning, that if we just work harder, longer, faster, we'll somehow fit everything in. But life whispers back with steady defiance. You cannot. Think of your day as a small, beautifully crafted bowl. It has a fixed size. No matter how much you want, it cannot hold an ocean. And yet, many of us live as if we can pour endlessly into it, piling in tasks, responsibilities, and obligations until everything overflows. What results is not abundance, but waste. The bowl breaks, and with it, so do we. The essentialist accepts what the non-essentialist resists. To choose one path is to forego another. Every time you say yes to something important, you must say no to something else you may also value. And that is not failure. It is focus. Trade-offs are not the enemy. They are the essence of a life well lived. Consider the story of Steve Jobs when he returned to Apple. At the time, the company was drowning in dozens of product lines, trying to be everything to everyone. Jobs made the hard choice to cut nearly all of them, focusing the company on just a few essentials: the Mac, the iPod, eventually the iPhone. Those trade-offs saved Apple and transformed it into one of the most valuable companies in the world. Jobs understood what many of us forget. Saying yes to everything dilutes impact. Saying yes to less amplifies it. The same is true in our personal lives. A parent who tries to be everywhere at once, at work, at social events, at every activity, may end up exhausted and half-present. But a parent who chooses deliberately, who makes peace with missing certain things in order to be deeply present at others, gives their child a gift no endless yes ever could: their full attention. Trade-offs also protect us from the trap of mediocrity. Imagine spreading butter over too much bread, thin, tasteless, barely there. That's what happens when we scatter ourselves. We become adequate at many things, but excellent at none. Essentialism invites us to flip the script, to concentrate our energy where it matters most, to allow excellence to bloom instead of adequacy to spread. But this requires courage. The courage to admit we can't do it all. The courage to disappoint some people. the courage to live with the discomfort of letting go of good things in pursuit of the best things. Non-essentialists chase everything and end up with little. Essentialists make peace with missing out, because they know what they are gaining is infinitely more valuable. Think about your own life. Perhaps there's a career path you've been chasing that looks promising but doesn't ignite your soul. Perhaps there are friendships that drain rather than nourish. Perhaps there are habits, routines, or obligations that once made sense but now only weigh you down. What would it mean to trade them for something better? Not more, better. McKeown frames it simply: we can't have it all. We can make our highest contribution to the world by narrowing the focus of what we choose to do. Each trade-off is not a loss, but a design choice. Like a sculptor chiseling away marble, every strike removes what does not belong, until the figure hidden within is revealed. Trade-offs carve our lives into art, so the next time you face a decision, don't ask, "How can I do both?" Ask instead, "Which of these will matter most in the long run?" It is a harder question, yes, but it is also the only one worth answering, because in the end, the measure of a life is not how much we fit in, but how deeply we chose the few things that mattered. There is a subtle grace in slowing down before you commit. In a world where opportunities come dressed in urgency, emails marked high priority, invitations that expire if you don't respond instantly, offers that whisper, "Don't miss out," it feels natural to jump in, to nod, to sign, to accept. Yet Greg McKeown reminds us that wisdom lives not in the fast yes, but in the slow one. And equally, in the quick, confident no. Think of how many commitments you've made in a rush. Maybe it was agreeing to help with a project before you'd even considered whether you had the time, or saying yes to a dinner invitation while your body silently begged for rest, or signing up for yet another responsibility at work because you didn't want to seem unhelpful. In the moment, these choices feel small, but added together, they create a life so crammed that there's no room left for what actually matters. The Essentialist flips this script. They pause, they breathe, they let the request sit like a letter unopened on the table. They do not confuse urgency with importance. Instead of leaping to yes, they ask, "Does this align with my highest contribution? Will this move me closer to the life I want to live, or farther from it?" If the answer is no, they don't hesitate. They close the door with kindness, but firmly. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. A quick no is a gift to both parties. It frees you from resentment and overwhelm, and it frees the other person from false expectations. How many times have you said yes only to back out later, apologizing, feeling guilty, leaving both sides worse off? A gentle, honest no in the beginning is far more compassionate, but what about the things that might be worth a yes? The Essentialist doesn't leap there either. They practice the art of the slow yes. They test. They reflect. They allow time to reveal whether the opportunity is truly essential or just noise dressed as promise. It's like waiting for fog to lift before stepping onto a path. You may discover that what looked like a golden road was just a dead end. McKeown encourages us to hold every opportunity up to a high bar. If it isn't a clear, resounding yes, the kind that fills your chest with certainty, then it's a no. This is the discipline of the Essentialist. To trust that passing on good things is the only way to make room for great ones. There's an elegance in this way of living. Imagine walking through a crowded market, stalls shouting for your attention. The non-essentialist stops at every booth, samples everything, buys things they don't need, and leaves burdened. The Essentialist, however, walks slowly, scanning with calm eyes, waiting for the one thing that is both rare and necessary. When they find it, they buy it with joy, carrying it home with pride. The difference is not luck, it is discipline. This discipline transforms not just decisions, but identity. Over time, people learn that your yes carries weight. Because you don't say it lightly, Your commitments are trusted, respected. Your no is not resented, because it is delivered with honesty and consistency. You stop being the person who is always available and start being the person who is always clear. Of course, this is not easy. Our culture celebrates the fast yes, the person who always agrees, always jumps in, always says, "I can handle it." But behind that image lies exhaustion, scattered focus, and shallow results. The essentialist may appear slower, more selective, but in time their impact is undeniable. They leave behind not a blur of half-finished efforts, but a legacy of meaningful contributions. So pause the next time someone asks for your time. Let silence be your ally. Ask yourself honestly, does this align with my essentials? If not, let your no be quick, kind, and final. And if it does, let your yes be slow, deliberate, and wholehearted. Because in the end, the quality of our lives depends not on how many things we said yes to, but on how many times we had the courage to wait for the right yes, and the clarity to deliver the right no. Deliver the right no. Deliver the right no. Deliver the right no. Busyness has a seductive charm. It makes us feel important, productive, even indispensable. When someone asks how we're doing, the automatic reply tumbles out, busy, as if busyness itself were a badge of honor, proof that our lives matter. Yet Greg McKeown calls this illusion what it really is, a trap. A trap that lures us into the trivial many, scattering our attention across endless distractions while keeping us from the few things that actually make a difference. Think of a candle flame placed in the open. A small breeze makes it flicker, waver, almost disappear. That's what happens when our attention is divided among 1,000 trivial tasks. We burn dimly, inconsistently, nearly invisible. Now picture the same flame sheltered, focused, protected from the wind. Suddenly it grows steady, strong, capable of lighting an entire room. The essentialist protects their flame. They do not let the wind of busyness snuff it out. But the modern world has made this harder than ever. We live in an economy that thrives on distraction. Social media notifications ping, emails pour in, meetings multiply. We confuse activity with progress, mistaking motion for meaning. And in this swirl of trivial many, our days blur together. We're busy, yes, but are we moving anywhere worth going? McKeown offers a sobering truth. Being busy is not the same as being productive. You can fill your hours with motion and end the day having accomplished little of true value. Non-essentialists mistake the volume of activity for success, while essentialists measure progress only by what moves the needle on what matters most. This shift requires ruthless honesty. It asks us to hold up our daily routines and examine them under a bright light. How much of this actually contributes to my highest purpose? How much of this is just noise I've mistaken for music? The answer can be painful, because we discover that much of what consumes our time is in fact trivial. Imagine you are in a crowded attic, piled high with boxes. Some contain treasures, but most are filled with junk you've forgotten. The non-essentialist runs frantically from box to box, opening and closing, overwhelmed by the clutter. The essentialist, however, pauses. They sort carefully, discarding the junk, keeping only the few boxes worth carrying forward. Our days are no different. Without sorting, life becomes an attic of cluttered busyness. With discernment, it becomes light, spacious, intentional. McKeown emphasizes that escaping the trivial many is not about laziness or disengagement. It is about courage. The courage to admit that most things are not worth your energy. It's about choosing depth over breadth, significance over surface, clarity over chaos. It is about saying, I will not waste my one precious life being endlessly busy. But this doesn't come easily. Busyness flatters the ego. It makes us feel needed. It keeps us from facing the harder, scarier questions. What do I truly want to give my life to? What if, beneath all the activity, I discover I've been avoiding the essential out of fear? Many of us prefer the safe chaos of the trivial to the vulnerable stillness of focus. And yet, the essentialist insists that stillness is where strength is born. When we cut away the trivial, we don't end up with emptiness. We end up with space. Space for creativity, for presence, for joy. The trivial many suffocates. The vital few breathe life into us. So how do we begin to escape? McKeown suggests starting small. Notice one area where you are spending energy on what doesn't matter. Perhaps it's checking your phone first thing in the morning. Perhaps it's meetings you don't need to attend. Perhaps it's commitments that linger only out of guilt. What would it look like to cut just one of them away? To reclaim that time for something essential? Because in the end, busyness is not a badge of honor. It is a warning sign. A life scattered among the trivial many may look full, but it feels empty. A life dedicated to the vital few may look simple, but it feels rich. The essentialist chooses richness every time. At some point, we all face the sobering truth. If we do not design our own lives, someone else will design them for us. Greg McKeown describes essentialism as not merely a philosophy of choice, but as the craft of designing a life by intention, where each day, each routine, each decision is shaped deliberately instead of drifting on autopilot. To live as an essentialist is to stop being a passenger and to step into the role of architect. Think for a moment of a house built without a blueprint. Walls placed randomly, windows facing the wrong way, rooms too crowded to move in. It might stand, but it will never feel like a home. Many of us build our lives this way, stacking commitments, scattering priorities, reacting to demands, until one day we wake up in a life that doesn't quite fit us. The essentialist pauses to draw a blueprint. They ask, what do I want this life to look like? What must be built? And what must never enter its foundation? This design begins with routine. Non-essentialists often resist routine, imagining it as a cage. But McKeown reframes it. Routine is not confinement. It is liberation. By establishing simple, consistent habits that protect the essential, we remove countless trivial decisions. Consider how much energy we spend deciding when to exercise, what to eat, when to write, when to rest. Each small choice drains our focus. The essentialist designs routines so that the essential happens automatically, without friction. It's not about rigidity, it's about freedom through design. Environment plays its part as well. Just as an architect designs the placement of windows to bring in light, the essentialist designs their surroundings to invite clarity. If your workspace is cluttered, your mind will be too. If your digital world is filled with pings and buzzes, your attention will be scattered. The essentialist is intentional about space. They remove distractions. They simplify. They create an environment where the vital few rise easily to the surface. But beyond routines and spaces, there's a deeper layer, the design of decisions. McKeown suggests we create boundaries in advance, rules that protect our essentials without requiring constant negotiation. Think of them as guardrails along a winding road. Once in place, they keep you on course effortlessly. For example, an essentialist might decide, I don't check email before noon, or I reserve Sunday evenings for family, no exceptions, or I invest my energy in one major project per quarter. These rules aren't restrictive. They are protective. They shield the vital from the trivial, giving shape to a life that otherwise would dissolve into chaos. The act of designing a life also requires honesty about trade-offs. You can't build everything. Just as an architect must choose between a spacious kitchen or an extra guest room, you must choose which essentials deserve the prime space of your energy. Each decision is a design choice, and every design choice is a declaration. This matters, that does not. What emerges from this discipline is not a life of rigid order, but one of elegant simplicity. The essentialist doesn't stumble through days hoping to find time for what matters. They craft days that naturally lead them there. Imagine waking up not to a flood of obligations, but to a rhythm you chose, one that carries you steadily toward your true priorities. That is the life of an essentialist. And perhaps most importantly, this design is deeply personal. Essentialism does not hand you a template. Your blueprint is not mine, and mine is not yours. For one person, the essential may be family dinners and creative work. For another, it may be spiritual practice and service. For another still, it may be deep study and building a business. The point is not to copy someone else's design, but to step into the role of architect and choose your own. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, are you living in a life you've designed, or in one that has been designed for you by others' expectations? If the walls feel too close, if the windows face the wrong way, if the rooms are filled with clutter you never asked for, perhaps it's time to redraw the blueprint, because in the end, essentialism is not just about saying no. It is about saying yes. Yes to a life built with intention. Yes to routines that serve you. Yes to spaces that inspire you. Yes to choices that reflect your deepest values. A house built with care becomes a home. A life built with care becomes freedom. When clarity comes, something remarkable happens. Effort itself feels lighter. Greg McKeown calls this the power of effortless execution. It's not about doing things lazily, nor about avoiding hard work. Instead, it's about removing the unnecessary friction that makes essential actions harder than they need to be. The non-essentialist pushes through life as if wading against a current, drained and weary. The essentialist, by contrast, learns to align with the flow, letting progress happen with a kind of quiet grace. Think of a river. You can fight it, thrash against its current, and exhaust yourself, or you can step into the stream and let it carry you forward. Essentialism teaches us to create conditions where the essential is the natural path, where the things that matter most are the easiest to do, not the hardest. How? By eliminating friction. Imagine you've decided that reading for 20 minutes each evening is essential to your growth. The non-essentialist makes this decision but leaves obstacles everywhere. The book is buried in a pile, the phone buzzes nearby, the schedule is chaotic. Of course, the habit fails. The essentialist, on the other hand, places the book by the bed, silences the phone, and sets a gentle ritual to prepare the mind for stillness. Suddenly, what once felt difficult flows effortlessly. McKeown encourages us to focus less on pushing ourselves harder and more on designing systems that make the right thing the easy thing. Too often we treat discipline as brute force, as if willpower alone can carry us endlessly uphill. But willpower is finite. Systems, however, sustain us. By investing once in removing barriers, whether that's simplifying your workspace, automating tasks, or setting up cues for habits, you create momentum that carries you forward again and again. There's also something deeply human about this principle. Think of a child learning to ride a bike. If the bike is too big, the tires half flat, the path rocky. The learning is full of struggle and tears. But if the bike fits, the tires are firm, the path smooth. Suddenly the same child feels the rush of freedom. Effortless execution is not about avoiding effort. It's about aligning effort with conditions that allow it to flourish. When we apply this to our work, our relationships, even our personal growth, something beautiful emerges. The essentialist no longer burns out in cycles of overcommitment. Instead, they build momentum. Each success builds upon the last, not because they forced it, but because they cleared the path. Their energy compounds, their contribution deepens, and their life feels less like a battle and more like a rhythm. But this requires letting go of a toxic belief many of us hold, that struggle equals value. We've been taught that if something is hard, it must be worthwhile, and if it feels easy, it must not be important. Essentialism dismantles this lie. The most important things in life, love, creativity, service, presence, may require effort, yes, but they should not feel like constant uphill battles. When aligned with our purpose, effort feels like flow. This doesn't mean life becomes effortless in every sense. Challenges remain, setbacks happen, hard days still arrive. But the essentialist faces them with reserves of energy precisely because they've stopped wasting effort on the trivial many. They're not exhausted by meaningless battles, so they have strength for the meaningful ones. Ask yourself this: where in your life does friction make the essential harder than it should be? Is it a cluttered environment? A lack of boundaries? A habit you've left vulnerable to distraction? What would happen if you invested just once to clear the obstacles? What would flow then? Effortless execution is about more than productivity. It's about dignity. It's about honoring your essentials enough to prepare the way for them, to treat them not as afterthoughts, but as treasures. Imagine walking a path where the stones have been cleared, the way lit, the air calm. Each step still requires movement, yes, but the journey feels lighter, freer, more alive. That is what essentialism offers. Not escape from effort, but the joy of effort aligned with what matters most. Leadership is often imagined as command, the loudest voice in the room, the one who juggles the most tasks, who seems to have a hand in everything. But Greg McKeown paints a different picture of leadership through the lens of essentialism. True leadership, he argues, is not about doing more. It is about embodying clarity, about modeling the discipline of less but better, and in doing so, giving others permission to do the same. Picture a leader who says yes to everything. Their calendar is crammed, their presence thinly spread across endless projects, their decisions rushed. What happens to the team? They mirror the chaos. They chase too many goals. They lose sight of the essentials. They burn out. Now imagine a leader who stands calm amid the storm. They are selective, thoughtful, unhurried. They say no often, but when they say yes, it carries weight. The team feels it too. Priorities sharpen. Focus deepens. Energy is not scattered but directed. That is the essentialist leader. McKeown reminds us that leadership begins within. Before you can guide others, you must discipline yourself. Essentialist leaders know their own values and limits. They protect their time, not selfishly, but because they recognize that only by safeguarding their energy can they give their best to others. They don't mistake activity for achievement. They measure themselves and their teams by what actually moves the mission forward. This kind of leadership has ripple effects. When a manager declines unnecessary meetings, the team feels permission to guard their own time. When a parent chooses to be fully present at dinner instead of multitasking, children learn that presence matters more than busyness. When a friend models the courage to say no, others discover that their own boundaries are valid too. Essentialist leaders don't just talk about priorities, they embody them. And leadership doesn't always mean leading hundreds. It might mean leading one family, or one small team, or even just yourself. But in every case, the principle is the same. You cannot inspire clarity if you are consumed by clutter. To lead is to choose, and to choose wisely is to lead well. One of the most powerful images McKeown offers is that of the lighthouse. A lighthouse does not run up and down the coast, frantically chasing ships. It stands still, rooted, shining a steady beam of light. Its power lies not in movement, but in clarity. Leaders who embrace essentialism become like lighthouses, calm, consistent, unmistakably clear. They show the way not by doing everything, but by illuminating what matters most. But there is also humility in this kind of leadership. The essentialist leader does not pretend to know everything or control everything. They simply commit to protecting what is vital and refusing what is trivial. They resist the temptation to be everywhere at once, knowing that their greatest impact comes not from being scattered, but from being deeply present where it counts. And so, whether you see yourself as a leader now or not, the invitation of essentialism is the same. Lead from clarity. Lead from courage. Lead by embodying less but better. Because every life touches others, and when you choose essentialism, you do not only free yourself, you free everyone around you to imagine a different way of living. Ask yourself, what kind of leader are you becoming by the way you live today? One who scatters energy across the trivial many, leaving others lost in the noise? Or one who dares to focus, to protect the essentials, and in doing so, becomes a steady light for others? The essentialist leader doesn't demand attention. They earn trust. They don't promise everything. They commit to the few things that matter, and in their discipline of less, they model a way of life that inspires far more than endless yeses ever could. In the end, essentialism is not a tactic, not a productivity hack, not even a set of rules. It is a way of being. Greg McKeown reminds us that the disciplined pursuit of less but better is not something you check off a list once. It is a lifelong practice, a mindset that quietly transforms the way you walk through the world. To live as an essentialist is to wake up each morning with intention. It is to see time not as something to be spent recklessly, but as a treasure to be invested wisely. It is to stop chasing every possibility and to honor the truth that some things, only a few things, are truly worthy of your one wild and precious life. This doesn't mean life becomes simple overnight. Temptations remain. The world still clamors with noise, distractions still sparkle like glass, and the pressure to say yes never fully disappears. But the essentialist learns to breathe in that noise and return, again and again, to the quiet center of clarity. They learn to ask, what is vital here? What can I let go? And each time they answer, life becomes lighter, sharper, more aligned. Over time, this practice reshapes identity. You are no longer defined by how much you juggle or how busy you appear. Instead, you are defined by presence, by depth, by contribution. People know that when you say yes, you mean it. They feel your energy, your commitment, your undivided attention. And perhaps most importantly, you feel it too. Life no longer feels like a blur of obligations. It feels like a path, steady and clear. McKeown describes essentialism as a choice available to everyone, but chosen by few. To step into it requires courage. The courage to resist the trivial many, to accept trade-offs, to disappoint some so you can honor the vital few. But with that courage comes freedom. The freedom of knowing your life is not scattered but gathered, not borrowed, but owned. Imagine your days as a canvas. The non-essentialist fills it with frantic strokes, covering every inch in chaos, until nothing stands out. The essentialist steps back, waits, and places only a few deliberate strokes. The result is not emptiness, but art. A life lived with essentialism looks like that canvas. Simple, spacious, beautiful. And so, the question turns to you. What will your essential life look like? What will you cut away? And what will you protect? Where will you draw the line in the sand and say, this is what matters. This is what I give my heart to. Only you can decide. No one else can fight for your essentials. Perhaps the first step is small. Saying no once when you normally would have said yes. Taking a quiet pause before rushing into another commitment. Choosing better over more. And then repeating, day after day, until the practice becomes second nature. Slowly, your life begins to shift. Slowly the noise fades and clarity grows. Slowly, you realize that essentialism is not about doing less, but about becoming more focused, more purposeful, more alive. At the close of this journey, McKeown leaves us with a profound truth. Essentialism is not about fitting everything into your life. It is about fitting your life around what is essential. It is not about cramming, but about clearing. It is not about saying yes more often, but about saying yes more meaningfully. And maybe that's the legacy we all long for. Not to have done everything, but to have done the right things. To have lived not as a prisoner of busyness, but as a guardian of what matters most. To have built a life not of noise, but of clarity. Because in the end, the essentialist does not leave behind a list of endless tasks completed. They leave behind a life that was whole, intentional, and deeply true, and deeply true, and deeply true.